Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to lecture 13. This is the third lecture of module 3. In the previous lecture we discussed about training need assessment, and we discussed about task analysis, organizational analysis, and also person characters analysis. And today we are going to discuss about when to conduct this training need assessment. Okay, in this lecture we will be primarily discussing on when to conduct a training need assessment. Let us look at now when we are already looking at that yes, training is needed when there is a gap between the desired performance and a current performance. We are looking at yes, that act as an indicator or a precursor or a reason for when there is a gap. So when there is a gap or a deficiency on the performance in the desired state against the current performance, then we say there is a need. And we also understand, does the gap is attributed towards a skill or a knowledge. See, it is very important. I cannot fit every gap through a training. Let's say let's talk about there is a deficiency which are occurred. Let's say A is a deficiency which are occurred. So the deficiency which you are talking about is a productivity. Let's say 1000 units per day has to be produced. Okay. What I have seen, it is 800 units, which similar example which I have given in one of the lectures. Okay, now let's say there is a deficiency which is a 200 units or less, right, minus 200. Now there is a less of 200 units which are produced on a day. Now let's say I understand that this is because of external factor, which I refer to the external factor, I refer to, let's say, power failure, which are not because of your employees or not because of your organizational process itself, may be attributed towards the other aspect which are external to you, or probably machine breakdown. Now let's say I cannot fix this problem through a training. You should understand the gap which are arising, the performance deficiency which are attributed towards a skill or a knowledge or a competency of the employee. When this performance deficiency is primarily due to the knowledge gap or probably a skill gap or a competency gap, then there is a potential opportunity that you will be able to improve the skill level of the employees or a knowledge or a competency of the employees through training programs. Unless otherwise, there is this performance deficiency which are not a resultant of because of the knowledge or skill level of an employee, then I cannot do anything about it. Maybe because of the external factors, maybe because of the general business environment, maybe other attributes, then I cannot address this performance gap. So meaning that not all problems can be addressed through training, but which can be addressed through training is when it is specifically on knowledge or a skill level of an employee, then it is addressable, because you need to understand training may be able to resolve some part of the problem. So we need to analyze the problem and find out whether training will be able to resolve it. And that's also one of the primary purpose of conducting training need assessment. I cannot attribute everything can be fixed through a training, not necessarily, and it cannot be the case at all the time. So maybe some section of the training can be. For example, let's say even this external factor I talked about, a power failure. Let's say the power failure occurred due to mishandling of a machinery. Okay, then probably yes. Similarly, machine breakdown is again because of not a proper maintenance of the machinery. Then if I look at the cause, what is the cause I am talking about? The employee or a person who is responsible for this maintenance of the electricity or maybe maintenance of the machinery is not properly trained to conduct or assess or maybe do the regular overhauling of the machine. So now yes, some part of the a deficiency can be addressed through a training. That's what we are looking at. Yes, it is possible. Then you need to find out what portion can be addressed through a training program. Okay. Now let us look at the training need analysis model. See, for any training, the trigger is here. So what is the trigger? So trigger essentially comes the actual performance. Let's say actual performance, which we are referring to AP, is lesser than the expected performance. What we are looking at? So when the actual performance is lower than the expected performance, in this case, which are very clearly triggering that yes, something is not happening as expected. That's the indication. So that becomes a trigger. So yes, my organization is observing that my employee performance is not to the level what I expect them to perform, right? So that becomes a trigger, and you should also understand the trigger cannot be a one-off incident. When you are occupying a critical role in an organization, you should understand you cannot just jump into a training need assessment because you observed one incident. You should see this is becoming a recurrent phenomenon or maybe systematic in nature. Maybe because of one error, maybe one time there is a deficiency, you don't need to conduct a training program, or you don't need to spend your resources on conducting training need assessment. But if the trigger is showing that the actual performance, actual organization performance continues to be lower than the expected performance, it clearly indicates that yes, something wrong, meaning that your performance is definitely lower than what is expected. So you are going to suffer in a long run. So you need to address it. How do you do it? That you will be jumping into conducting the organizational analysis, which are training need analysis. You will be doing it on objectives, what are the organizational objectives, goals. Then you will have to see the resources, what do you have in an organization. You have to see the general environment in an organizational setup. Then you will also see operational analysis. We will be focusing on expected performance in a job role or a task. Then you will also see actual performance against the set of standard which are benchmarked. You are already benchmarked with expected performance. Then you will be able to identify the performance deficiency, which you will be comparing the expected performance against the actual performance. When you find out yes, there is a deficiency, then you need to identify the causes of the performance deficiency. That is where we are coming into. So it is a precursor. This exercise is a precursor to initiate. Are we going to go and see the causes of the performance deficiency? Let's say we declare yes, there is a performance deficiency. Now let's say performance deficiency is there. Now I need to go and understand the causes of it. So what is actually causing this performance deficiency? You need to understand these causes of it. The causes, if you say external or internal, or probably you can even classify into which is actionable, not actionable. Okay. So when I say actionable, meaning that you can act on it, you will be able to make some changes, some improvement on it. Whereas non-actionable, you do not have control over it, where let's say a government makes decision that resulted in performance deficiency, or maybe price fluctuation in the economy, or probably general business environment, then it is beyond your control, that which is not actionable. But anything which are actionable causes, that can be addressed through training. Okay, now you need to understand some deficiency can be training needs, some cannot be non-training needs. So that gap you cannot address it through a training, rather, but you will be able to see some section of it you are able to be addressed through a training needs. So you should in a management role you should always understand you have to classify the causes. You cannot address all the causes through a training. You need to see can I classify the causes into actionable and non-actionable. Non-actionable which is beyond my effort to address it. If I can control it, yes, it will come in the actionable. Then in the actionable, can I act on it through a training program? Can I improve? And as I say, the deficiency which are arising because of lack of skill or knowledge of my employees, competency or a competency also, these are all can be improved through training, which I can do a targeted training so that I will be able to improve my employee who are lacking the skill or a knowledge or a competency, then I can act upon it. Okay, so now you see that in the the diagram which I have shown, the trigger for training need assessment always comes from the observing a performance deficiency, which meaning that you are continue to see your company is or your actual organizational performance is lower than what you are expected to do. For example, let's say you are keeping quarter 1 to quarter 4 every quarter. Every organization will have a quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4 targets. Let's say every quarter you are only able to achieve 80%, let's say 75%, then 70%, then 80%. You are observing that whatever the target you have fixed, which is 100% I am talking, but this is the maximum you are up to 80% or 75%, 70%, 80%. So then you are continuously seeing that there is a performance deficiency because we always set a goal which are realistic in nature. Organization sets a goal which are achievable, but despite the fact you are not able to do it, then there is a performance deficiency. So now training need assessment becomes important because it helps in determining whether a deficiency can be corrected through a training. As we already discussed, can we use a training as a mechanism to achieve it? For example, if I provide proper training to my employees, I can achieve 100%, then yes, you should conduct a training need assessment to improve this. So conducting training need assessment, it can help you to increase the chance that money and time spent on training are spent wisely, because you don't want to conduct a training program which are not actually required, right? So you have to have a very targeted specific training program so that whatever you spend which are wisely spent, it's a well calculated training which you are doing. And you can also determine the benchmark to evaluate the training. When you do a training need assessment, you are identifying there is a gap that is becoming a benchmark. You wanted to achieve this benchmark through your training program. So that becomes a benchmark to evaluate your training program. Yes, through my training, I want to see that required change. It can be behavioral or it can be performance related. That has to happen post my training. Okay. Then it will also increase the motivation of the employee. Yes, it will improve. Yes, my company is providing training to improve on where I am lacking. It will improve the motivation of the employees, and it will also align with the strategic plan of a company. So the training need assessment always helps you to see that can you design a training program to align with the strategic plan of a company. Okay, so for most type of a training, need analysis will increase the relevance and effectiveness. As we say, it will always add to the fact that yes, whatever the training we are delivering, which are relevant for my company, which are relevant for my organization and to my employees, and it will definitely improve the performance, the effectiveness we are referring to. And team building for teams, that will be who's going to work together, and they will also teams that demonstrate problems in effectiveness and cohesion would go through training need assessment to determine what type of a training they need. When they are having some problem on the team cohesion, what type of training is required, and teams already functioning effectively would need not to attend the training, so that the training cost can be reduced. When we do a training need assessment, we will be able to identify who requires training, who does not require training. It is not only talking about what training to be provided, it will also tell you out of this pool of employees who require training, who does not require training, because you don't need to put everybody on a training program and then you are again unnecessarily using the resources or wasting a time of your employees or resources on it. And sometimes those who already have the skill, they feel demotivated. Why should I go through the training? Because I already have a knowledge or a skill which I require for this. So it is important. This training need assessment also helps you to determine who needs and who doesn't require a training in an organization setup. And if you look at the framework which we discussed, which indicates that yes, training need analysis is conducted when there is a trigger happens. Trigger we are referring to performance deficiency, and trigger event occurs when one or more key decision makers in an organization, they communicate that yes, there is a performance problem exists and it needs to be corrected. That needs to be felt. when they feel that yes, there is a performance problem exists and it has to be corrected. And maybe through a formal or an informal, it may be any case, the purpose of training need assessment is to find whether the performance problem actually exists. Is it actually existing, or is it we are feeling that performance deficiency is there? And again, you need to understand this. We have to conduct this analysis to two approaches. Training need analysis, it will be either through proactive or a reactive training need assessment. So training need assessment can be done in two ways. One is a proactive and another is reactive. We will be discussing in detail what is this proactive training need assessment, what is this reactive training need assessment. From the word proactive itself, we are able to understand that in anticipating, we are in ahead of time, we are looking at to understand the training need assessment. So we are anticipating performance problem in the future. So meaning that, let's say in next 2 years we are seeing new tool or a technology is going to come up, then we are anticipating in future that yes, we might run into a problem that some of my employees do not know how to operate this particular technology or particular machinery, because this will have an advanced technology. So keeping that in mind, if you are conducting training need assessment, which is a proactive training need assessment, which you will have to conduct training program some set of employees so that they are prepared for what new things are going to come up. For example, training your employees on AI, artificial intelligence, or blockchain. These are some of the advanced technology which are coming up, and you are anticipating that this is going to come into all spheres of my organizations, that I should train my employees, right? So in this approach, organization also decides as a part of a strategic plan to implement the process to improve the quality and the better prospects for a company, and it also provides potential for identifying the discrepancy, future discrepancy to come up if employee do not have the specific knowledge. For example, as I said, same, if somebody cannot work on the artificial intelligence, if a company is primarily working on a knowledge industries or a technology industry, but you do not have a proper employee who have knowledge on working on these tools and techniques, then you will run into a problem. As an organization, you will run into a problem. That's where it is actually identifying a future problem which may arise because they might lack this particular knowledge or skills. So the potential gap triggers a proactive training need assessment to determine whether the employee will be able to perform as we expecting in the future course of action. So this is a proactive training need assessment, which are important for an organization who are working in any industry we are talking about. Yes, you always see change is becoming permanent and it is becoming very rapid. That's the concern here. So it is not at the permanent changes are permanent. It is not about that only, but it is seeing that the pace at which it is happening, it is very frequent and it is very rapid. So proactive training need assessment will always help you to become have an advantage over other competitors in your business market, where you will have a competitive advantage, that you will become a pioneer in exploring, or maybe you will have a core strength in operating in the particular market because you conduct a proactive training need assessment. Okay, now reactive approach. So reactive is most often, many companies we generally see it in your day-to-day life, or maybe the current organization you work for, even as a student, you will be seeing that most often when we hit with a performance deficiency, we will react. So it is very reactive, where there is a discrepancy. You are seeing that there is a performance being very poor, and you are trying to do the training need assessment, which is a very reactive in this. For example, per week you need to produce 5,000 units, but the actual performance is only 40 to 100, which is lower than what is expected. Then you are investigating why and what is the reason that there is a deficiency. It is a very reactive approach because it has happened, it has already occurred. On the event of the deficiency, on the event of failure, you are trying to act upon it. That is a reactive training need assessment. So as long as you are sensing that and then conducting training need assessment is always appreciated. But despite the fact, if an organization is not doing this training need assessment, will be a cause for a long run of an organizations. Okay, so both the proactive and also a reactive training need assessment will maintain the same procedures and orientations in maybe some slight differences on the orientation, because you do not have the specific performance already seen or a deficiency, but you anticipating something to occur in future. So some differences will happen in the orientation, but the procedure will remain more or less same for both proactive training need assessment as well as for the reactive training need assessments. Okay. Now, so we are looking at the model of process when performance deficiency is identified. Okay. So let's say we are identifying, looking at is there a performance deficiency at a workplace. So what are we doing? Actual performance, comparing the actual performance against the expected performance. When the actual performance is lower than the expected performance, we say there is a performance deficiency. If this our actual performance is greater than this, we are happy. As an organization, we are happy. We are meeting the expected performance, yes, or we are exceeding the expected performance, we are all the more very happy. But if there is lesser, then we see there is a performance deficiency. Okay, now comes, yes, there is a performance deficiency. What do? Is it worth fixing? You have to ask these questions. Is it worth fixing? Is the performance deficiency is going to cost the company? Is it going to be impact a company in a long way, financially, or maybe in a brand image, on valuation, in all perspective? Then if it is yes, then you need to go in detail now. What is that? Is it a KSA? KSA we refer to knowledge, skill, okay, ability. Is it because of the KSA? Yes. Then you need to choose appropriate remedy. How do you address this? Through a training program, yes, you will be able to improve the knowledge, skill, ability of employees. Then, is there a punishment reward incongruence? Because of that, by through a punishment or a reward incongruence, then you will be able to do, yes, change the contingencies. Or is it because of the inadequate feedback? Then provide feedback, provide a proper feedback. We need to understand, because rather, when the reward or incentive was not there, that is the reason that there is a performance deficiency. Then you change the reward system, maybe provide better incentives, then it will be addressed, right? And if there is a feedback is not provided, maybe there is no timely feedback system which says, let's talk about a situation where quality QC department in a shop floor or a production or a packaging section, and the people who are in the QC is not trained properly on identifying the defects in the product you produce, then, or maybe the services you offer, then that feedback you are not providing properly, or maybe you are giving feedback very later point in time. That's so maybe that is an attribute. Then you provide a proper feedback so that they can improve upon. Or is it an obstacle in the system because of the structural perspective, or because of the process perspective there is an obstacle in the system? Then yes, remove that obstacle so that it can be fixed. Now comes, we are looking at all different spheres why this deficiency. So what are the reasons for the deficiency, and we are also possibly looking at what are the ways which it can be addressed. Okay, now comes, so we have to choose an appropriate remedy, right? We are talking about knowledge, skill, and ability. We have to come up with an appropriate remedy for the deficiency. Okay, so now there are multiple ways this deficiency can be addressed. Okay, one is about job aid, providing additional support on the job. Yes, it can be fixed, possible. And let me come to the training a little later. Maybe transferring people or terminating, maybe somebody is not doing well, you have to transfer people to a different department and move people to here so that they will perform. Maybe you identify the person, the current skill is not matching this particular product or service, rather he or she should be in a different place. Then it is better that you transfer, or maybe you terminate an employee, then it is okay. Then change the job, yes, job rotation. Job rotation is a possible option. You move people to a different job roles, then you do, maybe you have a better practice at the workplace. Then comes, you have a training. Through training you can address the particular performance deficiency. So you have to always look at all the possible remedies, because if the other remedies are actionable, will be beneficial, it can improve the better performance, then organizations should opt for the alternatives available. You don't need to always drive towards a training program, unless otherwise the deficiency itself demands a training. Okay, so it is very important. If you have to always weigh the alternatives and see that yes, it is through a training we will have a better outcome, the performance deficiency can be fixed, then you should only sought for the training. Okay, not always training is a requirement. Okay, so we always with the diagram we have seen that training need assessment is conducted because of the performance deficiency, maybe because of the knowledge, skill, abilities. Then we need to understand the causes are more, and if you look at knowledge, skill deficiency where training is required. As I said, if it is because of the reward practice, you don't need a training. If it is because of the feedback reasons, you don't need a training. When it is because of the knowledge, skill, abilities, then you need a training program to fix the performance deficiency. Okay, so what are the data sources for performance discrepancies to happen or a deficiency to occur in a workplace? Okay, data sources, let's look at organizational goals, objectives or a budget, when what is the implication it is going to offer. Okay, so whether training emphasis should be given or not based on the organizational goals, objective and financial conditions. Okay, then labor inventory will talk about what is the current employee positions, how many I have, what are the current requirement, is it a sufficient number of employees I already have. This will provide some implication which is talking about whether training is needed to fill gaps caused because of the recruitment, meaning that I hired people, so I need to train my new employees, or there are many employees who left, so I need to train the existing employees on the other skills which are required, so that they will be able to fill up the position which are become vacant because somebody left the company, or because of the age factor, somebody who are aging and they cannot perform the particular role, I'm going to train a people. So labor inventory will also provide implication for what type of a training need is arising in an organization, either because of a new employee, maybe I need to give induction training or on the job training, or probably somebody left, I need to fill the vacancy, then I might have to provide additional training. Then organization level climate indexes, which is talking about labor management data, which talks about strikes or a lockout, grievances, any problems or complaints, turnover, absenteeism, accident and productivity. So many indexes are available. It will also provide some implication for training need. So this is either with respect to work participation or productivity. So this will also provide some indication about what type of a training need is required based on the climate. Is there a strike, or maybe my employees need to be trained or given orientation on the workplace practices or worker participation practices. The policy related training need to be provided so that I can avoid employees going on a strike or a lockout, or probably any grievance system. Let's say, how do you use the grievance management system? So maybe that will also provide me what type of a training I need to provide. Okay, then analysis of efficiency indexes. So efficiency indexes will be able to provide a ratio between actual and desired, what is the standard performance, what is the deficiency in the efficiency of my employees, and change in system or subsystem. That will also indicate new or a change equipment may be present a training problem, because you are changing a new tool or a machinery. That will indicate that yes, you need to train people to handle a new machinery or a new equipment or a new tool, right? Management requests or interrogations. So one of the most common techniques of identification of performance deficiencies through management requests. And the another one is about important source for training need is that yes, exit interviews. This information always provide you a focus on some of the problem areas, why my employees are leaving, what are the things they have encountered. Can we use that as an information to come up with identifying some needs for conducting training programs? It can be an awareness training, or probably on improving the skill set of the employees. And management by objective or work planning or review system, it will provide a performance review system or a potential review or long-term business objectives. Can be those informations will act as an implication for scheduling a training or focusing on a training. Okay, so these are the references. Today we discussed about conducting when to conduct this training need assessment, and now what are the ways we have to see. We are always looked at identifying the performance deficiency. What are the causes of performance deficiency? Is it worth conducting a training to address the cause of the particular performance deficiency? and you always find there can be potentially a lot of alternatives available for the performance deficiency to be addressed. And if you feel that training becomes the one of the important component to fix the performance deficiency, and especially if the deficiency is attributed towards knowledge, skill or ability of the employees, then it indicates that yes, there is really a need to have a training program. So this has provided a very broader understanding about how do you conduct this training need assessment and what are the alternates to be considered when you are going to fix on the training need assessment. So we will be seeing the method of conducting the training need assessment in the following lectures. Thank you.